Hi, kia ora, good afternoon. Oh, hang on. I need to see if I can do this without... Okay, I can. I just had to put my do not disturb on, because sometimes when people message me, it cuts the live off. So, I was having a nap, and I got woken up by the sound of running water. Like, I dreamt I was by a river, and someone grabbed my leg and told me to wake up. You know, come on, hurry up, told me to wake up. But I had a dream that I was laying down by a river, and I just assumed when I woke up that it was to do with that I had been talking about Archimedes' bow and this drought that they have caused, using the solar panels and all of that to cause the drought. That's what I thought it was. But I started watching YouTube while I was eating my nectarine, and this video fell into my lap, and I don't investigate these things on purpose. I don't go looking for them. I wait for them to come to me. If you know anything about the way the dead communicate, you're supposed to let them come to you. Unlike mediums and that who go digging for information, the dead are supposed to come to you. You have a higher accuracy rate if you let them contact you. Because even in death, your will has to be free. You have to give your will freely in order to be able to access time and someone's soul and someone's conscious imprint. So I don't go looking for any of my cases. I wait for them to come to me, and I always know when I'm being called to an investigation. And because I'm a high priestess and an indigenous medicine woman or shaman, whatever you want to call me, I understand how this works, and I'm allowed to have access to the dead. I was born to death. I was born into death because I'm a Scorpio. I rule death, and I rule birth, and I rule regeneration, reincarnation, whatever you want to call it. That's my domain. That is the throne with which I sit before anything else. I was born with that crown on my head. I also rule the occult. So I was born to do this. And I've been doing this a long time, since I was a child. Like 6, 7 years old. I've been doing this a long time. I've been investigating the occult, the paranormal, the supernatural, since before I could see over the family dinner table, watching my sisters perform pagan rituals and all of that sort of thing, because they were teenagers themselves. So when you go digging for information as someone who's trying to access the consciousness of someone who was formerly in the physical as one person, who will now be known as someone completely different, as a different person, because cells regenerate as soon as the atom starts to lose access to the physical. So we are reborn as soon as we start dying. And the white light that people claim to see when they're dying, that is the birth of creation. They're seeing the light of creation. and either you are then put in the womb, or to wait out the physical death of who you were before, or you are reborn again, and then in order for you to communicate to your loved ones who were your family in your last life, you have to wait till you're asleep, or where you're in an altered state of consciousness, daydreaming, in the zone if you're an artist, or a writer or whatever. If you're a creative mind, you're going to know what I mean when I say when you're in the zone. And there is an altered state of consciousness, in comas, having fever dreams, like I said, asleep, that sort of thing. So as someone who is contacting the dead or is communicating with the dead, to go digging for them leaves big, massive holes and gaps in the information. And I always say that a medium is, they jump on a trampoline to poke their head up. How the analogy I use is, imagine life and death is a 2-story building, and on the second floor there's a hole that the dead can look down into the ground floor, the first floor where the living reside. And a medium will jump on a trampoline and poke their head up in that hole of the second floor and take a snapshot of what they're seeing or what they're getting, come back down and tell people on the first floor, relay the information, but it snaps. It's like they're the go-between. They jump up, grab the information, come back down, jump up, grab the information, come back down. Whereas a median, median, which is what I am, if a medium is the go-between, between here and there, a median bridges the gap. And so what I do is I put up a ladder between the first and second floors, and I climb up the top and I reach down to pull the first floor up to the second floor. But you have to climb the ladder. Then you can have the communication with your loved ones yourself without needing mediums and psychics and clairvoyants and investigators and all the equipment. You can just do it yourself, which is why my teachings, why my classes will be so important. I have a lot of pride in what I do. I've spent almost 5 decades perfecting my science and my understanding of death and the afterlife. And now I teach that to everybody else. But the reason why people don't like what I do is because I will put them out of business once people realise you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars, hundreds of pounds, or any money at all to be able to have the sort of connection with the dead that I do, like I do. You can do it all yourself. You just have to do the work yourself. You have to work on you so that you are able to climb that ladder and withstand their frequency. Because I've been at this now since 2013. So it's a long time. 13 years I've been at training my body to withstand that frequency. Because when you touch the God frequency, when you have access to the God particle or the atomic particle, it drains a lot of your mental energy, but your physical energy as well, and you need to be on it, man. Like I said, a vegan or a vegetarian could never ever do what I do, because they would drain themselves and become so depleted of energy they'd end up having things like heart attacks and strokes. Because what I do requires an exceedingly high protein diet. And I used to be a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for 20 years. And the only thing that helped me, give me that boost to jump into my work in time theory, was to start eating meat again. And it completely transformed the way that I did my work. And then I wasn't making mistakes anymore. Because I wanted to know how I fell into quantum magnetics, manipulating time to manifest reality, but it's also manipulating time to see reality. Because you have, well, there's manipulating time to manifest reality. So there's two ways that quantum magnetics go. You can either access time to see time, or you can access time to manipulate it, to change the outcomes to things, including rewriting history, right? And a lot of the reason why people don't like me doing what I do is because when I see stuff people don't want me to see, I say what I see. Because the only way that we're ever going to fix this planet and save humanity is if people wake up to the truth of their false reality, unplugging people from the matrix. And my particular area of expertise is to do with life, death, and the afterlife, and everything in between. The transition of one's soul from the point of creation. That's my area of expertise. But because of my family and how I was raised, I was born into an occult family where what I am wasn't unusual. It's just that it's when I started turning it into science that they started not being able to get a grasp on what I was doing. So I became the black sheep. I mean, I've always been the black sheep, but once I became an occult physicist and started recorrecting all the things that we as a family understood to be true that weren't, a lot of people didn't take too kindly to that. A lot of people don't take kindly to the fact that I'm telling them that the way they're making money is fraudulent and not necessarily on purpose. Not everybody out there in the world is a Santaro or a Teresa Caputo. But that if you want to be the best at what you do, if you really truly believe that you're here to serve a higher purpose for God or whoever you believe, the universe, spirit, whatever, then you have to stand in truth, and you have to speak the truth, and you have to know the truth, and it starts with you. And so I understand how it's done. And when I get my radio show, when I get out on the road and start doing my shows and bringing my movies and books and all of that to you, and eventually my School of Alchemy, I'm teaching you the truth. And sometimes the truth is a bitter pill to swallow, but if you're choosing not to do the work, if you're choosing not to listen, you're choosing to live a lie, and that's going to come back on you. You cannot call yourself spiritual. You cannot call yourself a servant of God or the ancestors or a witch or whatever it is you want to call yourself. You can't claim that title if you're not living the truth. If you're living a lie in who you are and how you're presenting yourself and the knowledge that you're putting out there, you're a fraud. And that's how the universe is going to see it. And because the universe works on a karmic scale based on the laws of the karmic universe, which the laws are written by Satan himself, if you believe in Satan, the judiciary side of God writes those laws, and they're ancient laws. They're draconian laws. They are ancient laws, which, incidentally, Capricorn rule. Which is interesting because it's one of the things I thought when I was investigating Patricia's murder, is that she was a Capricorn. And this matters because I'll tell you in a minute. So, in order for you to have access to someone's Akashic records, call it the Akashic records, for them to grant you access, they have to trust you. Otherwise, you're robbing information from them, which is why you're only getting snippets. Because when they trust you, when you've earned it, they open the door and invite you in, which is what all the victims in the cases I work on do. They come to my door and knock on my door and say, I need your help, or can you speak my truth for me, please? and put it out there. And even just by me recorrecting all the misunderstandings or fallacies surrounding their case, it recorrects the balance for them, and then that part of their soul that never got justice or never got peace or never got closure finally gets laid to rest. And then the new version of themselves is one less mental health disorder, is one less addiction, is one less problem that they're dealing with in this life, because I've helped them lay something to rest in their last life. And that's why I wrote my comic book, The Soul Collector. That's what she does. Detective Ruby Corazon, Ruby Hart. She time jumps to investigate unsolved murders and unsolved crimes in order to bring the perpetrator to justice in the eyes of karmic law, but also to bring closure to the victims who died with the truth not being told about what happened to them. Like Anne, because there's a massive cover-up with that one, as I've already explained. But I'm not talking about Anne. I'm sitting with Patricia. I'm sitting within her biometric code. So I'll give you a quick synopsis of Patricia. Patricia Grainger is from my neck of the woods, Sheffield, South Yorkshire. I'm in West Yorkshire, and in 1997 she was born. She was born in January 1972, so she's my age. She would have been my age now. And she died in 1997 on the 10th of August. She was last seen outside a NHS hospital talking to some man, although the description of who she was last seen with and the composite sketch of who she was with are two completely different men. So I would say that who she was seen with and whoever did the composite drawing, there was some misunderstanding there. She had a learning disability. And the second I heard that and I saw the composite sketch, the first thing I thought was Jimmy Savile. So I did some digging, and she was found by a river. She was found in a river by some children, and she was mutilated. She was essayed and mutilated, and she apparently was a wonderful mother. She had a young son, and she had this learning disability, and she lived in Sheffield, and she died in a very she was, her body was disrespected in all horrible kinds of ways. I'll just put it that way. And when this video I was watching was talking about her body and the state her body was found in, the first thing I thought after Jimmy Savile was, or the second thing I thought after Jimmy Savile was the Yorkshire Ripper. Now, if you know anything about the Yorkshire Ripper and Peter Sutcliffe, Jimmy Savile and Peter Sutcliffe knew each other. And a lot of Sutcliffe's, I say in quotes, victims, I'm putting Peter Sutcliffe's name in quotes, not the victims. He had a lot of victims. Some of them survived, some of them didn't. But the ones that didn't, the mutilation to the bodies and that were very identical to Patricia. Now, obviously, it couldn't have been Sutcliffe because he was in Broadmoor, but it could have been Savile. And I've been doing some investigating, and Savile had access to hospitals all over Yorkshire, including South Yorkshire and Leeds and all of that. Now, I'm not saying that he was connected to that hospital, that the man she was seen talking to outside the hospital was Savile. I'm just saying that because of her learning disabilities, and he preyed on people with learning disabilities, he may have known of her through the NHS because he had those access to the files. Now, it is widely believed, and I do believe, that Peter Sutcliffe worked with Jimmy Savile, for Jimmy Savile, and took the blame for Jimmy Savile. I think that he was, like with Anne Widdecombe, the scapegoat. The thing that Jimmy Savile and Peter Sutcliffe have in common as well is Aleister Crowley. They were all members of the Fabian Society. And at the time of Patricia's death, there was an election coming up. And Jimmy Savile had a scandal that was covered up during the election with John Major. And what I'm saying is, and I've put all the links in the description box below, on the 7th of August, so 3 days before her murder, you had the Feast of Pan. And then, oh gosh, I can't remember. And then there was the pagan festival on the day of her murder, the pagan festival of where it required being out in nature, where it required using herbs and plants and that sort of thing, and that's where she was found. And so what I'm saying is, I think her murder was a sacrificial murder. Jimmy Savile was a practitioner of Aleister Crowley's. They had a connection. They were all in the Fabian Society, which is what Obama, the Clintons, everyone in Labour, especially Keir Starmer, they were all members of the Fabian Society. And you know about Keir Starmer and Jimmy Savile and the cover-up. Keir Starmer was introduced to Jimmy Savile as a child. And then he went on, when he was working for the Crown Prosecution Service, to cover up the investigation, to say, no, there's not going to be an investigation. So it's all connected. So she may have been sacrificed. And because the thing is, one of the sacrifices requires, even though it says girls aged 7 to 17, they might not have had access to one, but it required the mutilation of genitals. And that's what happened to her. So she has all the hallmarks, Patricia, and I'm sorry if her family hear this, but she has all the hallmarks of a sacrificial murder. And like with the Delphi murders, Abby and Libby, who I believe were sacrificed for stuff that they needed Donald Trump to get away with, the Proud Boys and that, Patricia has all the hallmarks of being sacrificed in order to, because John Major, there was that whole Edwina Curry affair thing going on. And interestingly, Peter Sutcliffe was originally arrested in Sheffield, and then in South Yorkshire, and then taken to West Yorkshire. And Jimmy Savile had access to Broadmoor, where Sutcliffe was. He had access to all the hospitals and did charity, and he, if you'll see in the link in the description box, he was in Sheffield a lot. And he was in Sheffield in 1997 too, which is the year that Patricia was murdered. Because the thing is, if someone is that violent and that hateful towards women, they don't just kill once. They don't go to those extremes to kill someone. They're a serial killer. They leave their blueprint everywhere. You don't just kill someone in that kind of horrendous way and then walk away and never do it again. This person took their time to do what they did to that poor woman's body, and that has all the hallmarks of human sacrifice. And if Patricia's, I know her son Danny is trying to find answers, and if he wants my help, or he needs to talk or anything like that, all he has to do is reach out. And like I keep saying, if there's anyone out there who wants me to look into their loved one's case, if they died in ways that don't sit right with you, all you have to do is reach out. I've been doing this for over 10 years, when I had my blog, people were reaching out to me to ask me to look into cases of their loved ones. The hospital said, rubbish, nobody does that. And it's like, well, I do. I'm given access to coroner's reports and court transcripts and everything like that, and I go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and then I see the glitches and I sew all the threads together to recorrect the imbalance, to recorrect the wrongs on behalf of the victim, and so that the families can get closure and find answers. And this has all the hallmarks of a Jimmy Savile, Aleister Crowley, occult Fabian society, for the purposes of covering up political scandal during an election, sacrifice all over it. On Jimmy Savile's stomping ground. And he was still alive in 1997. He didn't die until 2011. So I hope if her family hear this, it helps give them answers. What I will tell you is, you are not going to get help from the police in this. They will not. They will not help you. Not only are they helping to cover up for the bad guys, for the people in government, and, you know, they help cover it up, like Anne Widdecombe. But they know nothing about the occult. Zero. And I've always said that there needs to be, every police department in the world needs to have an occult department where they have people working on cases that appear to be occult in nature. So what I will say, if her family are listening to this or ever hear this, you're not going to get any, because it looks like the Labour Party, it looks like politicians were involved. It was done for politicians because they used her as a sin eater so that she would carry the burdens of their sin in order for the sinners to get away with sinning. Because she was pure and innocent. She was trusting. She trusted everybody. She's the perfect candidate. Other than a virgin or a child, she's the perfect candidate. It's quite often why they choose people like Savile and that, choose children and people with disabilities and that, because they're considered pure. They're considered innocent. And when they're committing their acts of sin, they, in their effed up minds, they believe that by choosing an innocent victim, that victim will then carry the weight of their sin because God won't judge them. But it doesn't work like that because they're idiots and they don't understand how the occult works. God, you can't fool God, and you certainly can't fool Satan. But they try, which is why they use magic, because they use illusion to try and trick God and the afterlife and that. But it doesn't work like that. It's like an ant hiding behind an ant-sized towel, thinking that an elephant isn't going to see it. But the elephant knows it's there. Because the elephant sees everything. Even the smallest, tiniest, minutest detail, the elephant will know it's there. And I'm using that analogy because elephants are the totem for having just like with owls, a 365 degree, a 360-degree view of everything. They are the totem of not only like breaking down barriers and tearing down misconceptions, breaking down the walls and purification, like they smash everything down. They are basically fire in nature. When they go on a rampage, they are fire, but they're grounded in earth, which means that everything that an elephant does is for the highest good, but they see everything. They are the totem for seeing everything. You cannot get anything past an elephant. So and they're not afraid to blow the trumpet. They're truth tellers, so and they have the best memories, so they don't forget any sin that's committed. They don't forget anything that's been done against them. So that's why I was using the ant and elephant analogy. So also, like, obviously, if you're from India, Ganesh, so elephants are gods. And that's why I was using that elephant for reference. But you can't hide from God, and you can't escape anything with Satan as well. They see everything. And so they think that if they choose an innocent, and nobody willingly agrees to their own sacrificial murder, if you know the movie Kill List, there are some people that will hand themselves over, but they're not in their right state of mind. And everything has to be done with the purest of intentions, pure heart, pure mind. And anyone that agrees to that isn't living in a balanced state of mind. So when people like Patricia aren't available, when kids like Abby and Libby aren't available, they'll go to prostitutes, they'll go to homeless people. They're still considered innocent, but they're not pure. But it's good enough. And they have to do it in a certain time frame in order to meet. But most of them, if they're not done on the night of the satanic calendar, I hate saying satanic because it's got nothing to do with Satan. The devil worshipping calendar, the ritualistic calendars, it's always done a couple of days before. So, yeah, so she has the hallmarks of that, and it's all connected to the Labour Party. And Jimmy Savile, Alistair Crowley, the Fabian Society, the Yorkshire Ripper, even the Moors murders, they knew Jimmy Savile. Bible John up in Scotland had a connection to Ian Brady. Could have even very well been Peter Sutcliffe. They all knew each other. They were all connected. And the person who investigated the John the Bible murders ended up coming down here to work on the Moors murders. And I think the Yorkshire Ripper murders as well, but don't quote me on that. It's all there in my other investigations. And he had a striking identical resemblance to who they said that Bible John was. And he ended up coming to work for the police here. I'm not saying that it was him, I'm just saying that I found it quite interesting. So, but yeah, so what I would want to say to Patricia's son and her family is, you're not going to get any closure from this unless they fake evidence and arrest an innocent person. But there are people who will take the fall because they get notoriety from it. And the other thing you have to be aware of with Peter Sutcliffe is he said that God was telling him to kill the sinners, that God was telling him to do it, which screams MK Ultra as well, which they've been using since the late 1890s, because it was a Tesla invention. It was a direct energy weapon that they now put into AI and stuff, and command people to go out and do horrendous things through AI. But the direct energy weapons that Tesla was working on, that they were using in the 50s and 60s especially, which is why we had all those killing sprees of, we had that bombardment of serial killers rife all over Europe and America and the United Kingdom and all those sort of things. It's because, as I proved from my JFK investigation with the blizzard, the storm of 67, whenever it was, and the Mandela effect and all that, how they put LSD and made it snow and made people trip out and think that they were hallucinating, making people hallucinate and stuff like that. It was all part of the British government's experiment to help America, more importantly the CIA, get away with their planned assassination of JFK. So Peter Sutcliffe, it sounds like they were getting in his head and they used him as the scapegoat to take the fall so that Jimmy Savile and his pals could get away with what they were doing. And they used to Aleister Crowley and his cult used to do sacrifices in my family cemetery at Beliskin, up in Inverness. Because his house, Aleister Crowley's house, is across the road. Beliskin House is across the road from my ancestral cemetery. So I know what I'm doing. I've been dealing with Crowley for a long time. This is like second nature to me. They spilled the blood of innocent people and animals in my family, and my ancestral ground is soaked with the blood of innocent people because of Aleister Crowley and Jimmy Savile, and because he had a house up on Glencoe as well, which isn't far from Inverness. It's a beautiful drive, but they knew each other. They did things together. A lot of them did, and they were all members of the Fabian Society. So yeah, unfortunately, and because we know a lot of the police are Freemasons, so unless they fabricate information and arrest an innocent person, they're never going to get they're never going to get help from the South Yorkshire Police, and they wouldn't know the first thing about occults, about the occult or cults, other than if they're a Freemason. But like I said, they don't know what they're doing. They get it all wrong. These cults get it all wrong. The Illuminati get it wrong. The cult of Odin get it horrendously wrong. Aleister Crowley got it wrong. LaVey got it wrong. They get it wrong. They don't know what they're doing, which is why now, in the age of enlightenment, the age of the awakening, that's what we're in now. We're not in the technological age. We're in the age of enlightenment. We're in the age of the awakening, the Great Awakening. Everything's been exposed. And I'm the one pulling the veil back and shining the light and saying, this is the truth. And the British government have been doing this sort of thing for a long time. And then they let the media blame the royal family, because remember, the Queen was supposed to be a lizard cannibal. Savile was a necrophile. And it sounds like this is possibly something that happened to Patricia as well. So I'm just putting it out there. And if your family want to contact me, my email address is in the description box below. and I'm only in Wakefield in West Yorkshire, so you can come round for a cuppy if you want, and we can have a talk. And if Mum has anything to say, she will. But this is just my 2 cents. I'm just giving you my opinion as an occult physicist. And I hope it brings you closure in some way. I don't know if it's going to make it better or worse, but it gives you a perspective that maybe you weren't thinking of before, because it doesn't look like anybody else was touching on this on the internet. So, but I hope it brings you peace in the knowledge that by her speaking up and saying what really happened, it's now brought her peace too. So whoever she is in her new life, whatever they're dealing with, if they are having any sort of trouble in their life, any mental health issues, nightmares, anything like that, by her coming through and me speaking up for her, it's now going to bring peace to who she is in this life. So it's really important in this life, in the lives that we live, that we clear up any karmic debt or karmic injustices. It's really important, and that's why I take it very seriously when people run around claiming to talk to the dead and communicate with the dead and be mediums and clear audiokicks and all that bollocks, when they're misleading the public and getting it wrong and lying. I saw someone doing a psychic reading on Anne Widdecombe the other day and blamed the killer, who nobody in this country believes that Joshua Carey is the one who killed her. Nobody believes that at all, and yet the psychic was trying to say that the reason why he targeted Anne is because he had a deep hatred for his mother. And I very nearly called her out publicly, but I thought, no, I'll just let karma deal with her. I get so offended when these so-called psychics, and psychic isn't the ability, it's the science. It's called the psychic sciences. So to call yourself a psychic is to call yourself sciences. It's like saying I'm a chemistry. I'm a astrophysics. Yeah, I get really offended because it's like, friggin' hell, man. People have tried to murder me over my gift. People have tried to murder me for my ability to do the kind of science that I can do. Jeffrey Epstein was hunting for scientists just like me to help him find the unanswered questions to the universe and help him get away with committing crimes against humanity. And the ones who didn't play along or figured it out vanished off the face of the earth, or worse. And they came after me because I refused to help them in any kind of way. I whistle blew on them instead. The only reason why I'm still alive is because of how powerful I am and how important my role is. And I was told in the 90s by my teacher that it was going to happen, and I have had to walk through that fire in pure, blind faith, knowing that it didn't matter what they threatened me with or try to do to me, I'm going to come out the other side not only getting justice but getting compensation for everything that these countries and these leaders and people have thrown at me for not sitting down and keeping my mouth shut when I saw what they were up to. But that the world would know my name, that I would get justice globally, and that I would be responsible for the great mass awakening. And if you know anything about the white buffalo calf woman legend, you know, Hey, the great spiritual awakening. She's the one that brings about the great spiritual awakening. So I'm giving serious thought about looking for a local person, a local man who is up for driving around and doing these investigations with me, and just starting in Yorkshire and Lancashire and Manchester and Derbyshire and Nottingham and that, and just doing shows locally, because I need to get my the mystery inside history shows out there. It's time. People are ready to hear it. The dead are ready to speak. God talks about it in the Bible. The dead shall be judged. In the book of Revelation, during the great awakening after Lucifer and Gog and Magog get thrown down into the fiery pits of hell, which is just a dramatic way of saying people like Donald Trump, Keir Starmer, the EU, Zelensky, and all the warmongers being held accountable for the atrocities that they've been committing against mankind. They'll be held accountable. They're going to pay for what they've done. At the same time as the dead rise, which, if you know my story, it's been happening for a while, and they're speaking. And then there will be the cleansing, the mass cleansing, and the days of darkness will be over. They won't control our weather. They won't cause fake drafts. They won't droughts. They won't control our food supply. They won't be bombing us. They won't be giving us pandemics. They'll all be held accountable. And then we get to start with a new dawn rising. And then Russia will get the new Jerusalem. Because everyone who's targeted Russia will be held accountable. It's one of the reasons why King Charles is suffering so immensely at the moment, because he chose the wrong side. He was told, you need to pick sides, and he chose Ukraine, and Zelensky is cursed. Everyone knows about the Zelensky curse. And now the king is feeling the effects of the Zelensky curse because he chose the wrong side. But Russia will be exalted. They had to do what they're doing in Russia at the moment to expose the fact that Keir Starmer and Zelensky have a drone business together, that Donald Trump's boys have a drone company together, and they all worked together because they're making billions, slaughtering innocent people. But the only way that was ever going to be exposed is if they targeted Russia again, because they didn't listen, so now the punishment is going to be 10 times worse. And everything they took from Russia will be given back to them tenfold. Vladdy just needs to hold his head up high. He needs to hold his head up and keep focused on the light and keep turning to God. Because God is pulling him out of it. God is pulling him up and out of it, and he doesn't realise that, I think. But it's all crashing down for Zelensky and Labour and all the countries that got involved. They're not putting it on the news, but I can promise you now, snippets of information are coming through where France and Germany and America and the United Kingdom and Ukraine and their leaders are suffering immensely. Their countries are taking a battering. And if you remember the dream that I put up a few years ago, where I was sitting on my North Star, and God said that he was done with playing games and that he was going to set the world on fire, that's happening now. So I am here to blow the trumpet to say we're on the brink of a great mass global awakening. We are in the age of enlightenment. We are in the age of the awakening, the great awakening, because, with the whole age of Aquarius thing that we've had as well, it's all that. But in order for people to come online all at once, there needed to be someone to flick the switch, to say, you've been living in the dark for centuries. this is the truth, this is the light, I'm holding my beacon of light, follow me. And it's got nothing to do with religion. You can be an atheist. It's got nothing to do with religion. And just admitting the fact that your president or prime minister is evil and that your tax money is going towards funding evil so that they can line their pockets. The only reason why Keir Starmer is supporting Ukraine and not backing down is because he's making money from the drones and hiding it in offshore accounts like in the Virgin Islands. I will always maintain that King Charles is innocent, that he trusted the wrong people, they got in his head. You know, they put those meta glasses on him, on his missus and all of that. So they got in his head and they fed him lies and he went along with it. And now he's suffering the consequences because he didn't wake up and do the right thing. And now Burnham is getting eaten alive. So he's not going to be Prime Minister for long, which is exactly what I said. So it's all connected, babes. And if Patricia's family ever get to hear this, my email is in the description box below. If there's anyone out there who has situations like this where they want me to look into it for them, I can't promise that their loved ones are going to allow me to have access. That's completely up to them. But I will thoroughly investigate the ones where the doors are open and I'm allowed to step through. But I'm here. And even if it's not giving you the answers you want, if it's at least giving you closure on behalf of your loved one. And helps get them closure too. And I can help you deal with the grief if you find it hard to come to terms with the fact that they were used for the reasons they were used and by who they were used for. Okay, so I'm going to go now, but everything's in the description box below. And if I was any of the victims of Savile's family, if I was any of the families of the victims of Savile and the victims themselves, I'd be launching lawsuits against the NHS. Oh, sorry, oops, doesn't cut it. The NHS, I hold responsible for the death of Queen Elizabeth II as well. That's why I said if I was Prime Minister, oof, the investigations that would be going on there, I'd be shutting that whole thing down. I would totally restructure the NHS in a way that they wouldn't be able to see their arse for their elbows. I'd have them in such a spin. So, and I've been a victim of the NHS myself, as you know, and they lie and they fabricate things on legal documents to protect their own egos, which is why I won't stop until I get justice. Because of them, I'm now dealing with pain every day for the rest of my life because of that anaphylaxis. Blew my scars open and got infected, and I was denied medical treatment and I was rotting from the inside out because of them, because they refused to admit that they know nothing about physics or the occult and judged me solely because I'm an Indigenous woman. So I speak for a lot of victims of the NHS and the government and police cover-ups. This is why a lot of these victims open the door to me, because we've all been in The same boat in different sections. So I am one voice, but I speak for many. And now I'm putting it out there. And the only way we're going to deal with these dictators and these evil psychopaths is if we all stand together and you need to wake up. You need to understand what it is you're dealing with. And just because someone says they're a psychic, medium or clairvoyant, even if they charge $1,000 a reading and they live in a mansion, it doesn't mean that they're allowed to do what they claim they can do. You need permission. And if you don't have permission, you'll deal with the consequences during the Great Awakening. Because people are going to see the truth, realise they've been conned, and then look at the person who's conned them and go, well, hang on a minute, but if she can do this and she said this and she's proven this and blah, 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 then why did you say that and why are you doing this and yada, yada? Fraud. You're a fake. You're a fraud. And then these people will be run out of town and they will never work again, and that's exactly what I want. Because then it clears the way, clears the path for the people who are genuinely here doing the work of their gods and ancestors and all that sort of thing. All the ones that are getting all the attention and, the glitz and glamour are hiding. They are the bush with which the innocent people are having their light hidden. Look at the bush, not at the light under the bush. So, yeah. I've got my work cut out for me because I'm one person and I was supposed to have an army, but they all tried to kill me because they ended up protecting the pedophiles that I'm now had this fight up against. They all took the side of the people that are that I'm saying have done this to Patricia. Epstein and all of that worshipped Aleister Crowley. So the cult of Odin and all of that is all Crowley based, all Fabian based. Because a lot of them, remember I was talking about the Aryan aliens, a lot of them are French and German and, from like pagan backgrounds, pagan ancestry, pagan and Druid bloodlines, which is predominantly like French and German, Scandinavian, and to a lesser extent the United Kingdom. But you know about the Druid circles and all that, because my ex took me to one and then did a drawing of a Druid high priest that he said he got a vision of, who was carrying the same sacrificial knife in his drawing that he was selling on his eBay account. So, but my sons and I went around and cleansed it. It was when I was first developing my Tane clay. We went around and cleansed the Druid Circle, which is here in South Yorkshire, I believe. So, yep, they're all connected. All the victims that come to me have a connection to a lot of what happened to me through the same organisations, through the same people, through the same cults, generally. Not always, but generally. So I'm going to go. And I shall speak to you later. Email in the description box. All the stuff is in the description box. Ka kite anō.